By and large, the vast majority of the videos I've done have had a positive spin to them. Sure, I've covered some Kiwis that were contemptible sods like Roy Corlander, who joined the German SS in World War II after getting captured. This chap was a quixotic who would have sold his mother for £1. History reserves a special spot at the bottom of the heap for individuals and regimes that engage in the annihilation of an entire group of people, men, women and children, whether it be for religious, racial or political reasons. And the attempted genocide and deaths of the native people that occurred in Terra del Fuego at the bottom of South America was none of the reasons normally associated with the term genocide. The attempted total eradication and subjugation of the Selknam people simply came down to money. The massive financial opportunities it opened up for the large grassland farming in the location where flocks of sheep are counted in the thousands. Front and centre in this sad sort of business was a New Zealander, Alexander Allan Cameron. And despite his infamy, there remains a town in Chile named after him. This story, for me, begins rather accidentally in a southern Chilean market 5 years ago, where I purchased this distinctive 15 centimetre odd tall wooden carving. Don't ask me why, I've forgotten. My Spanish at the time wasn't good enough to ask its origins. Aesthetically, it was appealing, I guess. Those origins, its creators, I've now learnt about with this exercise in history. Shortly, you'll know as well. The nomadic Selknam people have lived at the bottom of South America for an estimated 7,000 years. We are talking loosely Patagonia, the area that borders both modern-day Chile and Argentina. The Selknam moved throughout the region in tune with the changing seasons that dictated hunting and foraging options. These were hardy people. Winds in the region will rip you in two. At the time this happened, the estimated population of Selknam was down to around 4,000. By 1920, that number had plummeted to just 130, and in 1974, the last full-blooded Selknam died. The paraphrased words of one of their leaders, who would shortly after become another victim of the pogrom, best sums up his people. Any chance of living a free life, fishing and hunting the lands and waters they had done for 7 millennia, ended swiftly in the mid-1880s. Born in Dunedin in 1868 and educated at Otago Boys High, Alexander Cameron lived on and managed farms in Otago before looking to the untapped expanses in Chile at the age of 24. He wasn't alone, by the way. Land was cheap, and if that failed, there was also gold for a Kiwi fortune seeker to fall back on. Both the Chilean and the Argentinian governments welcomed these newcomers to lands that were all but unoccupied. They had invaluable experience operating cattle and sheep farms in their respective countries. Germans, British, Croatians, Italians, etc., all seized the ground floor opportunity. Massive ranches sprung up in the early 1880s. Only the farmers on both sides of the borders had run into a problem. The natives. With no comprehension the lands they roamed now had new owners, the Selknam considered any animal in the region fair game in a literal sense. Conflicts had also been occurring with the gold mining operators as well. The farmers' solution was brutal: rid the area of the natives. They formed posses and went out and shot them. The photos you see are starkly real. These were little more than outright massacres. Over the next 10 to 15 years, the Selknam was systematically exterminated or forced out of necessity into what was little more than sanctioned captivity. Bounties were offered. You got more for a woman. A dead one, of course. Food sources were poisoned. Skulls and skeletons were preserved and then sold to overseas museums. Captured and terrified Selknam were enslaved and sent to Europe to be part of what was then called human zoos. Again, as disturbing as it looks, these are all real photos. That's a couple and a child being shipped off. The most notorious hunter come murderer on the Chilean side of the border was Alexander Cameron. In his most notorious expedition, he and his crew murdered all of the men in a village in what is now called the Big Island Massacre, resulting in charges being brought against him. Ones he got off. The Chilean authorities and judiciary backed the farmers and their mercenary tactics. The diminishing ranks of the Selknam retreated into smaller and smaller enclaves, and they were in the end starved out of the wild. The survivors, or what was left of the Selknam people, ended up working on the farms or counting their days down in Catholic church missions located on reservations where pastoral care was the most important priority for the priests. And charmed, I'm sure. Between ill treatment and diseases like smallpox and scarlet fever, more Selknam people died on reservations than by a bullet. In one notable example, out of 200 mostly women and children in one mission, just a dozen survived one outbreak. For Alexander Indian Killer Cameron, as he was nicknamed, and his fellow ranchers, they got rico, rich. He went off and set up an even more successful ranch in Argentina, which he called Maori, and died at the age of 82. If there was ever a top 10 list of Kiwi bastards that ever lived, can I please issue a nomination? The haunting photographs of Selknam ceremonies remain the most indelible record we have today of traditional life before the farms and the mining. These were taken in 1920, when it appeared the race was about to disappear, and a kindly, makes coughing sound, German missionary wanted to catalogue their rituals. To end this rather grim story on a positive note, the descendants of the Selknam people are reviving their culture, for which I can say I've unknowingly done my little bit preserving. I will leave you with these stunning photos to close this one out. Turn up the cool music as well. The first of those photos you'll recognise. Para terminar, subscribe, por favor.